It is also crucial to note here that the power to determine salaries, allowances, perks, and privileges of members is still a power to be vested in the legislature. It is only linked to the government's increase in salaries of civil servants for the ease of governance and for providing an easily workable formula. However, the same has not been implemented by the executive as the legislature will. Now coming to the point of order raised by Ahmad, Khan has established that it is the constitutional mandate of the legislature to determine the perks and privileges of its members, and no other individual or body, including the Speaker, can interfere into this matter. As a settled principle of trichotomy of power, the executive has to implement the laws made by the legislature, which in the instant case seems the executive is evading its implementation and has effectively handicapped the legislature, which is highly objectionable, and it is tantamount to challenge the authority of legislature, which is absolutely unacceptable. With the aforementioned reasoning, the point of order raised by Ahmad Khan is ruled in order to the extent that the executive the above-mentioned statutory provision a copy of this ruling is being sent to the government for compliance and will be handed over to the Minister for Finance and Parliamentary Affairs in the sitting of this House to get it implemented, sir.
A very important point of order was raised by Mr. Ahmad Khan. It was regarding the financial power of the Assembly over the Executive, with particular reference to perks and privileges of the members of the Assembly. The facts of the point of order were, on Wednesday, June 30th, District Office, Ahmad Khan MP 108 raised the point of order seeking guidance from the Speaker about the financial autonomy of the Assembly, with particular reference to the matter of perks and privileges of the members of the Assembly. He questioned the authority of government in determining the salaries and allowances of the members of the Assembly. He was of the view that the Speaker as custodian of the House should be empowered to determine perks and privileges of the members of the Assembly. Other members including Mr. Sameer Khan, Mr. Shaukat Raja, Mr. Umar Khan MP and Mr. Ahmad also endorsed the point of view of Ahmad Khan with variation. I have reserved my ruling on the point to give due consideration to the matter. Having consulted the relevant provisions of the Constitution and the existing laws, I hereby move as written. The point of order raised by the member of the House requires crucial consideration as the issue of separation of power is at play. There should be no talking in the galleries, please. Please maintain the order. The point of order raised by the member of the House requires crucial consideration as the issue of separation of power is at play. Briefly, the constitutional scheme, the control over the purse of finances of the province are supposed to lie with the Assembly. This is encapsulated in the financial autonomy of the Assembly. This includes finances relating to the salaries and allowances of the member of the Assembly. In the present case, the Assembly has codified this power in line with the constitutional requirements and has linked the power of increase in salaries and allowances of members of the Assembly with the increase in salaries of civil servants by the government. The government, however, has not implemented to the extent of members of the Assembly, thereby the issue at hand, i.e., the executive has handicapped the legislature. Separation of power is a model of democracy that involves the distribution of power among the three pillars of the state, namely the executive, the legislature and the judiciary. In a system where there is a separation of powers, the doctrine of separation of power is also embodied in the Constitution of Pakistan. The first two organs, the executive and the legislature, are mentioned in Article 7 of the Constitution, while the third finds its role in Part 7 of the Constitution. In separation of power, each branch enjoys a considerable degree of independence from the other branches. Let me attempt to explore and establish the constitution of the financial economy and budgetary independence of the legislature on the touchstone of the ageless constitutional values, independence, and regarding the concept of separation of power between the three organs of the state. All three these organs have been envisioned by the Constitution to be independent of one another with regard to their administrative and financial affairs. So far as the approval of the budget of the legislature is concerned, we find distinctive features of legislature, i.e. Article 121 of the Constitution classifies expenditure charged upon the provincial consolidated fund, that includes the administrative expenses of the Secretariat of the Provincial Assembly and remuneration payable to the Speaker and the Deputy Speaker and the officers and servants of the Secretariat of the Provincial Assembly. Subsequent Article 122 speaks of the Secretary of the expenditure charged upon the Provincial Consolidated Fund as under. Procedures relating to the annual budget statement. So much of the annual budget statement as relates to the expenditure charged upon the Provincial Consolidated Fund may be discussed in, but shall not be submitted to the vote of the Provincial Assembly. To further clarify the scope of Article 121, it is pertinent to point out that the budget of the Assembly comprises three components, namely remuneration payable to the Speaker and the Deputy Speaker, the administrative expenses of the Secretariat and of the Provincial Assembly, and perks and privileges. The first two components are charged upon the consolidated fund, while the third component requires approval of the Assembly. Parliamentary supremacy, privacy and financial autonomy of the Assembly is coming from the member perks and privileges of the members of the Assembly. Let me draw your attention to the Article 250 of the Constitution. It says, within 2 years from the commencing date, provision shall be made by law for determining the salaries, allowances and privileges of the President, the Speaker and the Deputy Speaker, and a member of the National Assembly and the Provincial Assembly, the Chairman and the Deputy Chairman and a member of the Senate, the Prime Minister and the Federal Minister and Minister of State, a Chief Minister, a Provincial Minister and a Chief Election Commissioner. Meaning thereby the Constitution gave the right of determination of perks and privileges as well as allowances of the members of the Assembly to the Assembly itself. All the legislatures, including the draft Assembly, are following the constitutional principles for the salaries and allowances of their members. Pursuant to this article, the Punjab Assembly passed an act titled the Punjab Provincial Assembly Salaries, Allowances and Privileges of Members Act 1974, which determined the salary, allowances, etc. of the members of the Punjab Assembly. Every time a reckoning of the works was needed, this law was required to be amended by the Assembly in order to remove this hurdle, and following the footsteps of the National Assembly, Section 3 of the said Act was amended by the Punjab Assembly in year 2006, and the following provision was inserted in it. The salary shall automatically be increased by the government in the proportion to the increase in salary of the civil servants. However, despite this amendment, the benefit of increase in the salaries of civil servants was not extended to the public representatives. In year 2016, the said law was again amended by the Punjab Assembly in 2016 and as follows. The government shall by notification increase the salary mentioned in subsection 1 in proportion to the increase in the salary of the civil servants of the highest grade. Explanation: the word salary in subsection 4 shall include any ad hoc relief or special allowance provided to the civil servants of highest grade, having the effect of increase in the basic pay of the civil servants.